Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and folk of all ages, you know what time it is. It is October, and it is time for the holidays, holy days, and days of remembrance of our folk. Alrighty, y'all. It is the morning of the 4th of October, and we've got a day of remembrance today. So, let's get down to it. It seems like I'm running late every month. And today is the day of remembrance, October 4th, for Gothi Thorstein Gudjonsson. Then we follow that up tomorrow on October 5th, day of remembrance for Meister Guido von List. Then on the 15th of the month, we celebrate the birthday of our founder, Stephen McNallen. And on the 18th is our holiday, Vereneder, or Winter Nights. We follow that up after that with two of our newer heroes. On the 23rd, the day of remembrance for King Eorik, and on the 27th, the day of remembrance for Regnvald Odiakarl. Alrighty, that is a lot of stuff to go over this month. It is our busiest month of the year, October. It's a great month. It's the best month. My birthday's on the 28th, so I might be biased. Alrighty, let's get down to it, get to the nitty gritty, the details, and all the paragraphs of text that y'all love to hear me read. Okay. On October 4th, today is the day of remembrance for Gothi Thorstein Gudjonsson. Gothi Thorstein was born on October 4th, 1928, in Reykjavik, Iceland. He was an expert in Nordic studies, fluent in both Icelandic and English. A loving family man, trusted friend of Sveinbjörn Beinteinsson, and a founding Gothi of the Asatru Færðagith. He passed beyond the veil and joined his ancestors on January 21st, 2000. As a child, he contracted tuberculosis, which physically impaired him for the rest of his life. Many of the treatments at that time left him physically scarred and debilitated. But he was said to never pity himself for this. With more time on his hands, he dove into his thoughts and thirst for knowledge. Books, dictionaries, and later computer technology became a large part of his life. By all accounts, young Thorstein often spent more time in his mind than in the mundane. When he finished his primary education, he moved on to Reykjavik Junior College, and then on to the University of Oslo. He studied history, Latin, ethnography, and sharpened his already great knowledge of our Nordic ancestors. He also learned a great deal about how to deal with the Icelandic parliament when making institutions legally binding, and this is where much of his work with the Asatru Færðagith comes in. It has been said that while Sveinbjörn Beinteinsson was the heart of the Asatru Færðagith, Thorstein was the brain. He led the charge to get the organization legally recognized by Iceland, and was present at the famous moment where Lord Thor knocked out power across the nation during the meeting where the Lutheran bishop finally gave the Asatru Færðagith his stamp of approval. As a man with a substantial knowledge of Asatru, Gothi Thorstein was the most trusted advisor of the Asatru Færðagith's first two Allsherjargothar, Sveinbjörn Beinteinsson and Jormundur Ingi Hansson. Both sought his counsel regularly. He was also a leading voice of folkish Asatru in Iceland, and is often cited as being the most outspoken proponent of recognizing Asatru as the native faith of the Aryan people. Gothi Thorstein was a man of great knowledge and ambition and piety, a beacon of right action for the folk of the Asatru Færðagith. Although he shouldered the heavy burden of tuberculosis and its consequences for his whole life, this never stopped his march to victory for the Aesir. May we all remain unbroken and undaunted in our loyalty to the holy Aesir. Hail, Gothi Thorstein Gudjonsson. And we follow that up tomorrow with a day of remembrance for Meister Guido von List. Meister Guido von List, born 1848 on October 5th and passed away in 1919 on May 17th, was an Austrian playwright, author, and esotericist. He was the founder of Wotanism, which was an integral precursor to the reforging of Asatru. Born on October 5th, 1848, he was the eldest son of a wealthy family in Vienna, the capital of the former Austrian Empire. As was the custom in the area at the time, his family was Roman Catholic, and he was christened as a baby. He had a happy childhood and enjoyed trips with his father to the Austrian countryside. On one such trip in 1862, he and his father visited the catacombs beneath St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna. Meister von List had come to strongly believe that there were formerly a shrine to one of the Aesir in those catacombs. He felt so strongly about this that he knelt before a destroyed altar and swore that he would one day construct a temple devoted to the Allfather. Over the next 15 years, Meister von List joined the family leather business. During his free time, he sketched and wrote countless pages about pre-Christian Germany, as well as hiking and exploring the various Roman and Germanic ruins around the countryside. He even spent midsummer nights alone on top of the Gieselberg hill fort as a sign of devotion to the faith of his ancestors. When his father passed beyond the veil in 1877, he left the leather business and became a journalist. He wrote for many nationalist publications, as he was a big proponent of folkism, mostly covering the practices and culture of the rural Austrian people. He also spoke to various groups about the ancient priesthood of Wotan, which was his understanding of Gothar devoted to Odin. While his information was likely fragmented, he was clearly devoted to the Aesir and was doing his best to bring more people home to their birthrights. In 1902, Meister von List, his ideas of Asatru developed a more occult and esoteric component, which many people now call Armanism. He received cataract surgery and was left blind for nearly an entire year. During this time, he relentlessly studied Germanic language and the sacred runes. Once he regained his sight, he immediately wrote a manuscript explaining that the runes were the original language of the Aryan people. He claimed that a new futhork of runes came to him via vision during his blindness, and these are now known as the Armanin runes. Although Meister von List passed away in 1919, he spent the rest of his life promoting his Armanin runes and spreading what he knew about Asatru to his folk. His devotion to the Aesir was so deep that he held that troth until he passed to the next life. While his version of Asatru was something of a rough draft compared to what we have now, his writings and sketches provided an invaluable pathway to everything that we have now. His interpretation of the runes is still used to this day in esoteric work, even practiced by many in the AFA. While Meister von List did not build a temple to Wotan as he promised in the catacombs of St. Stephen's Cathedral, a man named Stephen McNallen did devote to Hof to the Allfather, a mere 96 years later in the United States. This temple to Wotan is Odenshof, founded in 2015 by the Asatru Folk Assembly, and it contains a dedicated shrine to the memory and works of Meister von List himself. May we never fail in remembering where we came from. May we honor forevermore the brave men who laid the bricks so that we could walk this sacred path. Hail, Meister Guido von List. And following that is the birthday of the very man who founded that Hof, our founder, Stephen McNallen. Anyone who has raised a horn in honor of our ancestral gods has done so because of, or in spite of, Stephen McNallen, said the Ausherigoti Matthew Favell at Ostar in the South, March in 2020. This month we celebrate the birth of our founder, Stephen McNallen. Before he became the father of modern Asatru, before he started a religious movement on his own, before the Kennewick Man, he was born in a small town in Texas in 1948. He says, on a more intimate level, I chose my parents well. My father was a hard-working Irish Catholic oil hand who had come to Texas for the oil boom some years earlier. And my mother was a loving, kind, and intelligent woman who, significantly, bought me the books I wanted and read them to me. Founder MacNaughton developed an interest in pre-Christian religion in college after reading the book The Viking by Edison Marshall. In 1968 or 69, he dedicated himself to the worship of the gods of Europe. In 1969-70, he founded the first Asatru church in the world, the Viking Brotherhood, which gained tax-exempt status in 1972. He began writing and distributing the rune stone, which was hand-typed and copied on a mimeograph machine. And he said, "At first it was a private thing, and then I began quietly promoting the religion, which at that point I simply called Norse paganism, as I had no name for it. I really was starting from scratch. About the time of my graduation from college, I started a minuscule publication called The Runestone. I cranked it out on a mimeograph machine. The first run was 11 copies. Within a year or so, August 29, 1972, I received recognition of the Viking Brotherhood as a tax-exempt religious organization. After reading Magnus Magnusson's book Hammer of the North, where first heard the word Asatru, Founder MacNaughton began to use and promote his religious ideal as Asatru rather than Odinism. At some point during his time in the U.S. Army, Founder MacNaughton began to adopt the belief that Asatru was a religion of the peoples of Europe, rather than being a religion for all, thus adopting folkism. In 1976, after being discharged from the Army, he renamed the Viking Brotherhood to the Asatru Free Assembly. In 1987, Steve dissolved the Free Assembly. After seeing what American Asatru had developed into, which denied the Asatru was a uniquely ethnic faith, Mr. MacNaughton stepped back into the Asatru scene, establishing the Asatru Folk Assembly. The emphasis on folk to differentiate from the universalist lie that threatened to take hold of our ancestral faith. He says, "It flourished. Over the years it grew, and I wrote Asatru and Native European Spirituality, which defines my convictions and purpose. We purchased a permanent building which became Odenshof, our first temple to the gods. The AFA has expanded to include 4 Hofs, now 5, in the USA and continues to grow. In 2016, after leading the Asatru Free Folk Assembly for 20 years, I turned it over to a younger generation and started the next phase of my service to my gods and to my folk. In the years since Mr. MacNaughton retired, he has remained an active participant at Odenshof, with charitable giving and contributing in any way possible. It is often said that we stand on the shoulders of giants, and none are more giant than that of our founder, the first Asatru. Thank you, and happy birthday, Mr. MacNaughton, from all of us in the Asatru Folk Assembly. Hail, Asatru, Stephen MacNaughton." And following that, on the 18th, the third Saturday of the month, Vedernætter, autumn has officially started. The days are noticeably shorter. The nights are noticeably cooler. The trees are ablaze with the colors of fall, and the crunching of the fallen leaves underfoot has begun. All around us, the world is dying. This was a time of drawing in close, of hearth and home and family. For our ancestors, this was not an autumn festival, but a quiet winter rite in which the female spirits were honored in a rite called Dísabrot. Today, Vedernætter is often seen as a death of the physical world, the world we can see, and the reawakening of the intangible. Is the world of high energy, of spirits. Is that deeper feeling and connection to the things we know to be there. This is the time we honor our Disir, our female ancestors. We remember that without our ancient mothers, we could not be. They cared for the home and the hearth fires. They cared for their families. Our ancient mothers, with strength and determination, raised the next generation against odds we cannot really begin to fathom. With the harvest finished, There's a quiet lull before we turn our minds to the hectic holiday season. Now's a good time to turn inward in introspection and to self-improvement. It's also the time to meditate on things of a more spiritual nature. Connect to the energy that is always there. And we get a few days rest before on the 23rd of October is the Day of Remembrance for King Georg, newly announced at the beginning of July of this year as one of our heroes. King Georg of the Tervingi Goths, father of AFA hero Athanaric, was raised during the 4th century in the Eastern Roman Empire's city of Constantinople. There was a statue erected there in his honor. Outside of these facts, we know nothing of his personal life. The only other fact about King Georg passed down to us is that he, like his son Athanaric, recognized Christianity as a foreign faith that would weaken his people by severing their ties with the mighty Aesir. According to Auxentius of Durostorum, he led a concerted effort in 347 and 348 to root out Christianity amongst his people. Since being Ásatrú and being a Goth were the same thing, these Goths that abandoned the Aesir were seen as betraying their Gothic identity. King Georg dealt with these betrayals seriously, punishing these traitors with death if they did not revert to their correct faith. The story of King Georg is short on details, but just as grand as one of our heroes resisting the scourge of Christianity. He refused to submit himself or his people to the universalist poison, choosing instead to fight it relentlessly for his gods and folk. May we all be brave in the face of adversity. Hail, King Georg. And finally, I know there's been a lot this month, but on the 27th, no less grand, the Day of Remembrance for Rekvald Odiakarl. Rekvald's date of birth is unknown, but he was executed in 1484, and almost certainly lived his entire life in the 15th century in Sweden. His second name, Odiakarl, means Odin's man. We know precious little about his life outside of the case which is recounted here. Rekvald was put on trial on October 27th, 1484, for having stolen from a number of churches in the southern portion of Uppland. He robbed the churches in Skeptuna, Markums, Orkesta, and Valentuna. Stealing from a church during this time was sacrilegious, yet Rekvald did this without fear, as he knew that he owed no allegiance to the foreign Christ. Once on trial, Rekvald openly admitted to being a pagan, saying that he had been a devout follower of Lord Odin for 7 years by that point. All of this implied that some number of Swedes still held troth with the Aesir 500 years after much of the nation had converted to Christianity. Rekvald Odiakarl was, of course, found guilty by the Christian Swedes and was burned alive. Not once did he attempt to apologize or betray his loyalty to the Aesir, and he died as he had lived for the last 7 years, as a man of Odin. Hail, Rekvald Odiakarl! And with that, it brings us to the end of the month. But you don't think I'd let you get off that easy, did I? We skipped that day, but on October 10th through the 12th, that's coming up next weekend. Get your tickets now. Winter Nights, the 14th Winter Nights in the Northeast. That's in New Hampshire. At Totala Acres, lovely home and property of our folk builder Ron Boardman. It's the second Winter Nights in New Hampshire. Beautiful, beautiful October weather in New England. I'm sure the trees are just bright orange and reds and yellows. And guess what? It's going to be the last Winter Nights national event not at the home of Freyr. Freeshof is ours in Austintown, Ohio, and this marks the celebration of Winter Nights. 14 years of hard work. New England and the Iron Belt put in, and they got their Hof. Go celebrate with them at Winter Nights. Get your tickets now. And then after that, I'll see you on December 6th at Freeshof for the dedication. Come on out, y'all. Alrighty. Thank you guys so much for joining us again. It's been a wonderful, wonderful year so far. We've got a few months left to go. I'll talk to you later. And in the meantime, hail Gothi Thorstein Guthinson. Hail Meister Guido von List. Hail Founder Stephen McNowan. Hail the DC. Hail King Georg. Hail Rackvald Odiakarl. Hail the folk. Hail the Aesir. Hail the Asatru Folk Assembly. And hail y'all. Have a good night. See y'all, everyone.